G'day everyone and welcome to the Timber Circularity Project for the Frame and Truss Unused Resources Survey Findings and Case Study. It's great to have you join us today. We're not, being a bit old, we find this technology a little bit difficult, so we hope it all works well and goes smoothly for everybody. Just to let everyone know, I'm Kirsten Gentle, the CEO of the Frame and Truss Manufacturers Association. We're a national organisation and we've got quite a few partners who help us invest in projects such as this. So it's really important for us as an association to make our members better members, and the only way we can do that is by investing in amazing projects like this circular economy one, and it's only thanks to our amazing partners that we can do that. Today, just a bit of housekeeping. We'll have three presenters. We'll have Professor Tripti Singh, Dr. Penelope Mitchell and Dr. Martin Strangard will all be joining us to talk and give presentations. We ask that you put your questions in the Q&A or chat box, and our preference is that we address them at the end of the three presentations, but if there's anything urgent, please let me know and we'll try and address it. The event is being recorded at the moment and that will be available via websites and sent out to everyone following the meeting. So who is FTMA Australia? So we're a national association that was formed in 2007. We're the national voice for timber frame and truss fabricators or manufacturers. There's approximately 287 individual plants based around Australia in every state and territory. And from those 287 plants, there's about 249 owners. FTMA has about 58% of all manufacturers as members. And it's really important to note that a large percentage of the businesses are all family-owned businesses. There's only a few corporates, but otherwise it's all family-owned businesses. We only have a small team, but we're definitely passionate about timber and supporting our members. I just wanted to take this opportunity to explain to you our environmental arm, Carbon Warrior. So we set Carbon Warrior up to really try and put a highlight and shine the spotlight on the fact that timber stores carbon for life, and it's the best way of reducing emissions in the built environment. Better still, we went and created a 4 steps towards a greener future policy, looking at policies in Denmark, Helsinki, France. All these policies and jurisdictions around the world have got policies in place that recognise the role that timber plays in addressing our climate crisis. They put in policies such as enforcing the use of timber frames and facade in some regions. It's been challenged in some courts, but it has always stood firm that if you can build with timber, you must build with timber. I will put you can download a copy of the Carbon Warrior policy at our website on carbonwarrior.com.au. I also want to let you know that on the 18th of October, the Gippsland Forestry Hub, in conjunction with Federation University down in Morwell, will be launching the Steps Towards a Greener Future document. It's an amazing document written by Dr. Alistair Woodard, and it's actually focused on our carbon, I suppose the inspiration was for the Carbon Warrior project. So we want to look at what policies are there, and there is so much information out there within the forest and wood products industry that has looked at the role of carbon, and Alistair's done an amazing job combining and collating all that information to really look at what governments can truly do to create a greener future. This report, as I said, will be launched on the 18th. I will put the link for the registration into the chat box during this webinar, but I do encourage people, if you do want to find out more, you can contact Licia at the Gippsland Forestry Hub or via her number. And again, we'll be sending out this presentation to all delegates, to all attendees after the meeting. So our first speaker for today is Professor Tripti Singh, Director of the National Centre for Timber Durability and Design Life. Tripti is a globally recognised expert in timber durability, known for her scientific excellence and industry collaboration. With an extensive background in wood product development and performance evaluation, she has made significant contributions to advancing sustainable timber solutions. Recently, Tripti was recognised as a Woman Ambassador for Wood Science by the International Society, which is just absolutely outstanding. So I'll just stop sharing my screen. And Tripti, you can share yours.
Kristen. Hi, everyone. Right. So the National Center for Timber Durability and Design Life has been established as a partnership between University of Sunshine Coast, Queensland Department of Agriculture and Forestry, University of Queensland, and Forest and Wood Product Australia. Our mission is to be a primary authority in Australia and as a global leader in research related to durability and design life. And that does include reuse and recycling of timber and wood products. Broadly, we work on 4 general themes, developing a standard and code related to timber durability, durable building material. We want to improve the service life prediction, understanding of fire performance of timber. Under the circular economy, we want to improve the biological performance of timber, as well as recycling and reuse. One of our key aim is to educate next generation of researcher, and through our outreach strategy with industry, we can enhance the visibility of the work, what we are doing. Sorry, some reason it's not going. Next. Right. So under the circular economy project, as I mentioned, we are encouraging the design of the building and product for long life, maintenance, and reuse via circular economy, promoting the use of recycled timber and wood product. In linear economy, what we used to is to take, use, and dispose. In circular economy, which is in contrast, aims to eliminate the waste and keep the resources as long as is possible. And at the end of the life, the product makes the beginning of a new cycle. So in the circular economy, we try to make, use, reuse, remake, and recycle. Australian circular economy, the Australian government has set several targets and initiatives to move towards a more circular economy by 2030. A report commissioned by PwC government has recognized that circular economy model for Australia could generate over 1.8 billion in direct economic cost over 20 years. And it's not only the economic benefit, it has huge environmental benefit, and because the circular economy model could save 165 million ton of CO2 per year by 2040. Along with the circular economy mandate, Australian government have pledged to achieve net zero greenhouse emission by 2050. And timber has to play its role if we have to achieve the 2050 net zero goal. So the maximizing the use of timber for urban development could help achieve our target of CO2 emission much faster, because we all know that 1 cubic meter of wood contain over 1,000 kilogram of CO2. And as forests grow, it absorbs carbon dioxide and releases oxygen. Harvesting of wood product ensure that the timber continue to be stored. And wood building store carbon, and the carbon remain stored over the life of the building. And if we can extend the life of the wooden product and then reuse the wood, net carbon capture and storage will be much more significant. However, the current reality is that many million tons of carbon resources are being wasted annually in the landfills. And the issue is not only the economic loss, as I mentioned, environmental loss, because the decaying wood in landfill releases carbon dioxide and other potent greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This contributes to our overall carbon footprint. And the irony is that timber is an ultimate renewable resources. So therefore, we need to cascade it through multiple life cycle. One can argue that a piece of wood can have up to 7 life. But currently, about 60% of timber resources is going to be landfill. The rest is predominantly burned for energy. But this is the right time, and there are various constraints and drivers for timber circularity. So if we look at briefly the constraints, Australia is a vast country, so our resources are widely dispersed. It perceived as, so someone is saying the slide is not moving.
No, it was moving for us. I think, Alistair, you might have to click live down the bottom to make sure you sync with the presenter, but I can see it and a few others have said, so you can keep going, Tripti.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, so we were looking the constraints and the drivers. It's Australia is a vast country. Our resources are diverse and dispersed. Timber is seen as perceived as a low value material. Often our timber has chemicals, resin, and fasteners, so it's difficult to separate. And across Australia, we have inconsistent regulations. But there are big drivers. Some of the people is already using as engineered wood product where they are recycling the timber. So roundwood has been re-sewn and reused for different applications. Due to the limited landfill capacity, we are seeing increasing landfill cost and increasing waste disposal levy. There are many product stewardship initiatives are underway in Australia. The National Waste Policy and associated product stewardship initiative are designed to push the country toward CE mandate. So there are many drivers, and this is the right time for timber circularity. And that's why at the National Center for Timber Durability and Design Life, we have a comprehensive program aimed at assessing timber uses in identifying suitable pathway for repurposing treated and engineered wood product. The project focuses on a stream of wood products that are difficult at the end of life situation, such as outdoor treated timber, including vineyard post, treated timber in building, and engineered wood product. We have a collaborator and we acknowledge their support and their financial support as well across the supply chain. Industry associations such as Forest and Wood Product Australia, AFPA, some of the treatment and glue companies, some of the manufacturers like FTMA, very supportive, FWPA, and users like Wine Australia, which we're working very closely. The project has 7 tasks. It's a 3-year program. We only have 1.5 years left almost. There are 7 tasks. So what we're trying to do is to assess the amount of the waste stream and where they are located, the condition of the resources, and like chemical or resin that it contains, and is it the resource able to be reused or does it need processing? Third task we're looking is the regulatory hurdle, which is a major issue with resource circularity. So we are investigating options and exemptions that may be required for reuse and recycling of treated timber. Logistic is significant for all material in the circular economy, particularly in Australia, as I mentioned, due to the vast distance. So the modeling, logistics, and understanding cost involved will help determine appropriate solution in various regions. So we are looking that. We are looking at geospatial mapping of all the resources, along with the council with circular economy activities already underway. And at the end of the project, we want to demonstrate some pilot. For example, we're working very closely with Wine Australia for their sorting, collecting, and repurposing vineyard post. So I think that's all I have to say. Happy to answer any question at the end. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you very much, Tripti. If you could stop sharing, and I'll introduce our next speaker, who's Dr. Penelope Mitchell, who's the project leader for the Timber Circularity Project within the National Centre for Timber Durability and Design Life. Penny is investigating end-of-life opportunities for preservation timber and engineered wood products within the circular economy. Penny was awarded her PhD from the University of Queensland on life supply chain using engineered wood products as a case study. Penny has since been involved in Australian life cycle timber initiatives, including the Timber Life Cycle Inventory, LCI, with CSIRO, and I can just say she's doing an absolutely fantastic job at this project. So welcome to Penny.
Oh, thank you so much, Kirsten. That was lovely. Thank you all for being here. Hopefully you'll get some useful information from the survey that we undertook. I'm just going to quickly go through the data collection for the whole project, but then focus on what we actually have done for the frame and truss industry, go through a few results from the survey, and also a little bit on how we're mapping the data. So overall, the goal of the Timber Circularity Project is really to identify viable pathways to divert end-of-life timber resources from landfill and integrate them back in the circular economy, like Tripti said. She mentioned that we've been focusing on those hard to deal with end-of-life timber products, so the ones that have been treated with preservatives or engineered with glues. So our main focus at this point is the vineyard posts and utility poles, engineered wood products such as particle board and MDF, frame and truss offcuts, of course, that are generated during fabrication. But in order to find solutions, we first need to understand the resources that are currently being wasted, so how much resource there is, volumes and weights, where that resource is located, what type of resource it is, and the condition and potential for reuse. For example, with the vineyard posts, we actually analyse the amount of preservative treatment retained after 20 plus years of service life. We're also doing strength testing so that we can actually compare the treatment levels and the strength to new posts, so we can determine whether they can be reused in situations where new posts would perhaps be, such as fence posts, for example, in agricultural areas. So generally in data collection, we've been having discussions with industry and industry associations, undertaking site visits and conducting surveys. We've visited quite a few locations in New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, Victoria and Western Australia, and Tripti's going to Tasmania soon as well. So we're getting a fair idea of what's actually happening nationally. In terms of the frame and truss industry, we obviously initially started discussions with Kirsten and Kat at FTMA, who we've had ongoing communications with, and they've been giving us a lot of support for this project. We've then engaged with industry and undertaken site visits to generally understand where the resource that's currently wasted was produced in the fabrication process, how much how much unused resource is actually being produced and in what form and condition that's in. whether it's clean offcuts or wood shaving sawdust, for example. In the case of offcuts, what sort of sizes are they that can't actually be used any longer in the process or for other uses on site? We're looking at how the resource is currently collected, so what sort of skip bins are used, for example, where the resource is currently ending up, and also costs involved with this. So this information that we collated on site gave us a fair idea of how to compose a survey which would allow us to collate the information that we wanted to collate. So we just set up a Microsoft Forms survey that we kept online from February to May this year. We targeted frame and truss manufacturers really through FTMA correspondence. So they put articles in their newsletters and online. They emailed people about it. They also mentioned the survey at their national conference held in March this year. So they were getting the information out widely for us. So some of the results, we actually got 39 companies who responded to the survey. That was about 16% of the total number of companies. Some of those companies indicated that they did have multiple sites because, as Kirsten mentioned, there's 287 unique facilities, whereas only 249 companies in total. The majority of respondents were in Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland, and 40% were from medium facilities, although in the small, large and extra large facilities there was similar response rate. The percentage of treated timber reflected the differences between the states. So most of the timber in New South Wales and Queensland was treated, whereas a much smaller proportion in Victoria and South Australia. As would be expected, the main quantity of unused resources produced per month by each facility was directly related to the facility's size. But when you express that as a percentage of the wood intake, it actually, the unused resource produced per month ranged between 5 and 7%. So we averaged that out as 6% of the wood intake because the statistically it wasn't that different when we worked it out. We looked at current and potential uses. Currently, the facilities are paying waste contractors to remove 42% of their resources that are unused. 21% is being reused on site in packaging, and another 21% is being given away to be used in a variety of applications. The respondents were also asked about what they thought potential opportunities could be, and it was mainly engineered wood products, followed by fuel and mulch were the suggestions. In terms of costs and barriers, the main monthly disposal costs for each frame and truss facility weren't really significantly different between the different size facilities, but there is a significant cost associated with unused resource disposal, which really could be addressed by recycling or reuse. However, most of the respondents mentioned that a barrier to transitioning to a circular economy was the cost of change. So that was interesting. So some of the recommendations that we're looking at to help industry move forward to develop strategies for a circular economy include increased data collection from industry. So what we've done is really only an initial snapshot, and we really will require future data to enable a greater understanding and also understand the incremental improvements within the industry if we continually collect data. So there may be opportunities to include questions within the frame and truss sector overview, which collects data regularly through verbal surveys, and other opportunities may arise that we can continue with the data collection. The second recommendation is further engaging industry stakeholders by feeding this type of information back. So the more that we talk about what we're finding. Hopefully that will increase the participation for data collection in the future, and showing case studies as well will hopefully help industry understand the possibilities and increase awareness in general. Lastly, we need to really understand the intersection between existing practices and logistics. So what's actually happening? How is waste being collected at the moment? And how is it being moved? So that any adoptions that we make to try and recycle should really work within the confines to really reduce those implementation costs that are being thought of as a barrier. So I just wanted to quickly show you how we're mapping the data also using this geospatial information. So we've identified each resource. So the resources are shown in the pinky purple icons. We've also mapped some of the solutions that are possible, and then things like licensed landfills and other infrastructure transfer stations, etc. We can turn all the layers off. This layer here is just the frame and truss. You can maybe see, I don't know how big your screens are, but some of the icons have numbers on. That means that within that suburb, there's multiple facilities. The data here has been mapped as per suburb as opposed to direct facility location, which is why we have multiples in the same area. We can interact with this data. For example, here I've actually chosen a particle board facility. You can see the little blue dot in the middle there, and basically located 100-kilometre radius around that, and within that area there's 9 frame and truss facilities. So we can actually find out information about each facility by clicking on them, or we can download a CSV file into Excel, so you can get all of those details in one file about all of those facilities within a particular radius, which may be useful. We can also draw distances between, like if a frame and truss industry wanted to know how far away a particular solution was compared to a landfill, for example, that can also be mapped out. So we're getting all the data about the frame and truss and vineyard posts and a whole range of things. So hopefully this will be a good resource for the industry going forward. So thank you very much for listening. As Tripti said, happy to answer any questions at the end or via email. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny. It's fantastic, the resources of being able to map where the fabricators are and linking them to areas. I'm really excited about what that can produce as we start to look at more facilities coming online that can help the manufacturers. Our last speaker is Dr. Martin Strangard, who is a Senior Research Fellow for the Timber Circularity Project within the National Centre for Timber Durability and Design Life. Martin has an extensive background in researching forest operations and logistics, and was awarded his PhD from the University of Tasmania for development of a forest biomass supply chain decision support system. So please welcome Martin.
Thanks, Kirsten. Just share my screen there. I want to see that one.
Yep, all good.
Yeah, except it's saying the battery's going to run out. Right, back. Okay, thank you.
You're on mute, Martin.
Right. Sorry about that. I
That's okay.
clicked myself off mute and back on again immediately, I think.
So you have to share your screen again.
Can't see it.
No, we
I'm not
can't
sure.
see your screen.
Oh. Not sure what I did there. Right. Hopefully I'm back now.
Yep, we are back in there now. Go for it.
You. Right.
Thanks.
I'll see. I couldn't get the slideshow going before. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to talk about two topics. Briefly talk about unused timber resource logistics. Most of what I'm going to talk about is a case study that we're running about potential for using frame and truss offcuts in the boiler at the Poo Wong Abattoir. So logistics, simplistically put, is about transporting material. The unused timber resource has some characteristics that make it more difficult to transport cost effectively, shall we say. So efficient logistics are critical if we're going to successfully reuse or recycle these resources. The characteristics include low value, low bulk density, and low spatial density. What I mean by low spatial density is that there are small quantities, for example, at each frame and truss facility, but then each frame and truss facility is spread apart from the others. So the resource that's there is dispersed over a broad area. In some cases, including this case study, there are low total quantities as well. So on to the case study. The owner of the Poo Wong Abattoir recently contacted the FTMA to inquire about the potential for using frame and truss offcuts as fuel for their boiler. Poo Wong is 85 kilometres to the southeast of Dandenong, where there's a large number of frame and truss facilities. They currently fuel it with a fuel called coalwood, which is transported from about 90 kilometres away, as well as wood offcuts that are being transported over 200 kilometres. So the questions to be addressed for this case study were, what's the cost of supplying the frame and truss offcuts to the abattoir? And how does that cost compare with the current disposal costs by the frame and truss facilities? First part of the study was a small feasibility study. And this was conducted at the Poo Wong Abattoir, where 25 cubic metres of frame and truss offcuts were delivered and chipped up using two different chippers. So what we found was that a small portable chipper was suitable for the task, but in order to maintain the productivity required, it'd have to be loaded by a machine. And also the chips produced were suitable for use in the abattoir boiler. As I said earlier, they get their coalwood from about 90 kilometres away, which is that little pinkish dot up in the top left corner. And so that was used as a rough idea of as a catchment area for frame and truss facilities that could be used as suppliers of offcuts in the case study. You can see down there a large quantity of them in and around of frame and truss facilities in and around Dandenong. So the current process in for disposal of offcuts by the frame and truss facilities is based around skip bins. So we decided for the case study to mimic that approach to minimise any potential changes at frame and truss facilities. I only considered the medium and large facilities in that catchment area, as the small facilities produce too few offcuts. Total offcuts produced by those medium and large facilities were estimated to be 273 tonnes per month. which is what I was getting at before. Of it's a big problem for individual facilities, but part of the problem is that collectively they don't have a lot of resource. So it was decided that the frame and truss offcuts in the case study would be transported unprocessed to be chipped on site at the abattoir. 2 skip bin sizes were used in the case study. 31 cubic metre skip bins are the largest that are commonly available, the green one on your left there. And we also found that there's a facility in Queensland using 70 cubic metre skip bins. The reason that 70 cubic metre skip bins were confined to the large facilities is the small boilers, such as at the abattoir, are quite sensitive to the moisture content of the fuel. So it was felt that only the large facilities would fill a large skip bin quickly enough to avoid it being left out and potentially getting wet. So 3 costs were identified: skip bin rental, transport and chipping. Skip bin rental based on the survey that Penny described and interviews with individual facility managers was assumed to be $7.10 per delivered tonne. Transport costs, there's a picture of a hook lift bin if you're not sure what I'm talking about there, being loaded onto a truck. As I said, facilities within 90 kilometres were identified. The transport rates, how I've calculated these are going to be described in more detail in a report that will be publicly available. I came up with between 25 cents and 50 cents per tonne kilometre for the smaller bins, and 15 and 25 cents per tonne kilometre for the larger bins. I also adjusted them because if you're paying someone by the tonne, but when the skip bin is full, it's only using slightly over half its weight capacity, they might go and get a job somewhere else. So I adjusted the transport cost to take into account that low density of the offcuts. And the estimated transport costs are in the table. You'll see that there wasn't a lot of drop in use of the 70 metre skip bins, and this reflected the fact that there weren't a lot of large facilities in that catchment area. Chipping costs, based on the feasibility study, I've selected the Moorebark 1425 chipper as a similar size engine to the larger chipper used in that feasibility study. But its big benefit is that it comes with a feed-in deck. So a small machine will be able to load the offcuts into there when they come in to be processed. Estimated cost for the chipper was $200 an hour, consisting of the ownership and running costs, the cost of an operator for the skid steer, and a skid steer itself. So the chipper cost per tonne was estimated to be between $21 and $56 a tonne, and that depends on the productivity of the chipper. It's a relatively new type of chipper, so there haven't been a lot of productivity studies to base the chipper cost per tonne on. So the total costs, adding up the cost of the skip bin rental, the transport and the chipping, basically came out between about $50 and $110 per tonne, a pretty substantial range, I do admit. So comparison with current disposal costs, from the survey that Penny described, we came up with mean disposal costs of $20 to $50 per tonne. But the caveat there is respondents were selecting values from broad ranges. So I take those values with a bit of a grain of salt. Other potential places that they could be taking the offcuts to include landfill, which in rural Victoria, from studies that we've done, has a mean cost of $265 per tonne. In an interview I did with a waste timber disposal facility manager in Dandenong, I was quoted a price of $100 per tonne for frame and truss offcuts, excluding engineered wood products. So in conclusion, it's possible that the collection, transport and chipping of frame and truss offcuts to supply that abattoir may be viable. However, we definitely need more definitive information about transport, chipping costs and chipper productivity and various other factors there. There's just too little detail to be sure about that statement above. Also, I need to note that 273 tonnes per month is not going to be enough to support a business. So this would have to be run as part of a broader operation. I haven't got a final slide, I've realised, but as the others have said, I'm happy to respond to questions at the end of the webinar.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Martin. That's great. If you can stop sharing your screen. I have got the first question in. Tripti, it's for you. It's saying that you mentioned that around 60% of timber resources in Australia are directed to landfill at end of life. How does this proportion compare with other OECD countries or notable international comparisons?
Okay.
Could you put your camera on, please?
Okay, here we go. It's in Europe, majority of the countries have zero waste policy. So, for example, if we're talking about, say, Denmark or other European country, there is no comparison. We are way too high. But the issue is different as well. There are very little likes of CCA treated timber. We have around 30% of treated timber are CCA treated timber. If we compare with US, it's somewhat similar. Currently, they are trying to recycle and reuse as well, but currently they are sitting around 50% as well. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Blair. Whilst we're waiting for any other questions coming through, Penny, I was just wondering if you could let people know how long is the project going to continue, and I suppose what do you see as the major outcomes that you want from the whole at the end?
So the project is running until the end of next year. So we've got another we've got a little bit longer. We've got about 1.5 years left of the project. Some of the major outcomes will obviously be that geospatial map, but as Tripti mentioned, we're also looking at pilots and case studies. We've also put together reports about the different sectors. So we will be having reports and presentations and other things to try and disseminate some of the information.
Yep, fantastic.
As well as a website.
Wonderful, thank you. And just to let people know that, so from a frame and truss point of view, yeah, the average, a small plant costs, as the presentation showed, over 20,000 a year to just get rid of an organic product, a product that we believe has got a value to it. We've been really fortunate for Australian Panel Products in New South Wales. They've actually set up a facility where they take the offcuts from all the plants and they mulch it all up and it goes back into their particle board flooring in Oberon. So, that's the kind of, for us, that's been fantastic to see that. And yeah, we're very happy about it. I do have a question here. The other issue is Australia is heavily dependent on MDF and Europe is on particle board. How does that make it different or make it difficult, Tripti?
Other issue is Australia is heavily dependent on MDF and Europe in particle board.
So is there a difference in regards to the recycling of MDF compared to particle board? I presume, John, is that your question? So is there any difference in regards to recycling MDF as opposed to particle board?
I mean, in Australia, we have one of the biggest manufacturer of particle board in the world, Bogue, and we don't have any MDF plant at all. which is unlike in Europe, there is a lot of MDF plants. So that's what probably he's trying to say. But once it's come for the recycling, you can recycle both particle board or MDF. I don't see a huge difference between those two.
All I know is that Dina, yeah, Borg is definitely the largest producer. But Borg Australian Panel Products, they're the ones that actually use our product and recycle it at the moment. So we've got a great relationship with Australian Panel Products, Borg, and they recycle all of our timber at the moment and put it back into the Oberon plant.
But then they produce particle board, not MDF.
Pardon?
They produce particle board.
Well, not MDF, yep.
Yeah.
It did say here also another question, Penny, is how would businesses access the platform? Are you planning to include the locations for solutions for other waste streams, kind of like a directory for solutions that aren't necessarily just recycling?
Yeah, we're hoping to publish that map fairly soon. It will be an ongoing sort of updates for that, and we will be adding more things. I mean, it would be great if people could buy in by giving us specific data for their region or solutions that they use. So, you know, the more that we can put on the map, the more valuable it will be for people, I think.
Yep. And obviously there's a difference in the sort of treatment. So when you work with the wine industry, they've got different treatments to our H3, H2 or H2F. So the question here from Christine is saying, how is the type of treated framing being distinguished in terms of volume, quantification and disposal opportunities for the chemical treatment type? So as all treated frames is not the same. So is there any difference that you have to do for H3 as opposed to H2 or H2F?
Well, that's the issue. Currently, the regulation is put all the treated timber in one basket. And that's what we're trying to educate, that no, H2F is a different treatment than H3, for example, and they have different footprint and different disposal mechanism should be applied. But currently, it's an uphill battle to have them separated. But that's one of the tasks we are trying to include in this study, that we can separate them two different products. Yeah.
We've also got a questions here, 2-point question from Alistair Woodard saying, does the Poowong abattoir take H2 treated material for burning? And did the study investigate what lengths of timbers there as waste from the frame and truss plants? Just wondering if 300 mil plus lengths were common. Perhaps these might be finger jointed back into studs rather than being put into a burner. Martin?
There's a few questions there. The issue of H2F we're still debating with, but of course, being in Victoria, most of the material is not treated. Certainly there's a potential for using those larger pieces for finger jointing, but I suppose you've got to find someone who is willing to do it. I think we looked at the possibilities for glulam, and there's not a lot of opportunities in Victoria for glulam timber. It is being done in Queensland. A company, Megabeam, are doing it, so it is possible. But certainly, I think there's a few hurdles to getting that done in Victoria.
Yeah, and I think there's a few fabricator managers who are getting a bit peeved by the long lengths of timber that are going in rather than being utilised.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We've also got another question here from Grace saying, have you investigated what other industries, farming, do to collect waste more efficiently?
Who was that addressed to?
It's to whichever one of you want to answer that.
Yeah, we have been looking at other things like ag futures, for example, and also product stewardship schemes with their take back or looking at it through a whole supply chain. So we have been looking at tyres and paints and IBCs and a whole range of things, and looking at how that's done to try and work out opportunities for treated timber as well.
Yeah. And Christine, I think that Christine's comment here, can't product EPDs help with that? I presume she's talking about the treatment and the disposal of the treatment. So product EPDs from the timber companies, does that help in regards to where you recycle and where it can be recycled?
I think in the future they definitely will, but as Tripti mentioned, the regulations are such that all treated timber and engineered wood products are put in the same basket. So as soon as we can separate, I think that the EPDs will help with that sort of separation of treatment type, so they probably will be useful.
Yeah, and it's look, it is something that it's not just the industry has to address this too. So fabricators, frame and truss manufacturers, they have to address it. And I know that I've been to plants where I've walked through and I've actually said to one company, "Oh, can I have that bit of ash in that recycle bin?" So it was like 2 meters long. I thought, gee, that'll make a great shelf at home, and it would have probably cost me a couple $100. So they have to lift it. And in the past, that some of them get put their bins out the front, and people climb into the bins to take the timber waste, even treated, which, you know, I hate the thought of people burning treated timber at home. And some get trailers delivered where they give them a load of firewood for a slab of beer. Others get it for $10. They've all got their different methods, but it's important that we actually address it with our sector as well. I have got a question here from Laura saying, since what companies fear is the cost of change? How are you liaising with regulators to drive this change, especially for big corporations? Planning and waste diversion is driven by regulation. So what do we do? You know, I mean, it is a fear that fabricators are saying that they're worried about the cost. I think it's an easy cop-out in my opinion. But Penny, Martin, Tripti?
Yeah, so under this project, we have a program going on and looking at various states and their regulations. And for our pilot, what we're trying to achieve, we are in direct contact with some of the regulators, and we are trying to understand that what is included, what is excluded, and if it's excluded, what are the reasons behind from the regulator's point of view. So yeah, it's hard to get to the regulators and get the straight answers. So any lobbying work, what the industry could do would be really useful for us for this project and for the future of the timber recycling.
And Tripti, that also goes into the state legislation. So different states have different legislation, and how does that affect the ability to reuse?
Well, that's what we are looking at, different state regulation, and if we are going to have a pilot in that state, what is the regulation, what is accepted, what is exemption. And then often we have issue that, well, this is not allowed, and that's where we talk to like of FTMA, AWPA, and people like yourself that what can be done. And to educate the regulators that all timber is not CCA treated timber, therefore it should be used. Like a lot of your FTMA offcut, they are just H2F, they are framing timber. So
and there is, and I was just going to let everyone know that there is a business in New South Wales, not far from Orange, a canola mill, and they actually take all the offcuts from a local facility, all blue, all H2F, all treated, but it gets burnt. So they've actually got EPA approval in New South Wales, and I just kind of go, if New South Wales EPA can give approval to burn based on the fact of the work that this gentleman did in getting the right boiler out from UK, then if they can approve it, then the other businesses can do it. So I think that, you know, it does come down to using the right boiler And as I said, he's proven to EPA New South Wales that there is, you know, no impact from burning the treated timber, which then helps run his mill. We've also got a question here about, has the dollar return for the animal bedding option been investigated yet for untreated material? And how did that stack up compared to burning? So, Martin, in regards to the Poowong, if we've got, you know, non-treated timber, blonde timber going in there, is there a comparison for that going into animal bedding for non-treated timber?
We haven't done it. I recognise there's certainly a market for it, and I'm sure some of the material that is being taken at the moment from the facilities is going into animal bedding, but I can't really shed any more light on that one, I'm afraid.
Yep. Okay, so I think I've touched off on all the questions here that we did have. I did want to just say, how can industry address increased waste costs and the circular drivers? What can industry do? Because everyone waits for government to change things, but what can, if there's one thing that industry or two things that industry could do, what is it? Because they need to act as well.
I think that understanding what the resource is really important. So although we've already done this first snapshot, if industry gets more involved and stays on board, then we can actually see the improvement. So we can see those incremental changes and have a really good idea of what's going on. So yeah, just more involvement would be fantastic.
Yep. And Jack Norton from the Timber Preservation Association has said they need to sort, and they do. And I personally believe that we should, as an industry, be looking, and I know my Tasmanian members just go scream at me, but I think if we were an all-treated industry, it would be a lot better, because fabricators have to stock both blonde and treated timber at times, and a lot of them don't have the size in the yard to do it. And the reason they don't sort is it's just too hard for them, and they haven't come up with an easy option, which, yes, can be a cop-out, but otherwise, I think they're looking forward to seeing what this final outcomes from this report are. So I've got through all the questions. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. As I said, we will send out the presentations to everybody, and we will send out the recording, which will be available as soon as it's done. If anyone does have, I'll just put up here, so everyone does have the, sorry about that. So there's the contact details for Tripti, Penelope, Martin and myself, and that will be in the presentations when we send them out. But if you do need to contact anyone, we do encourage you to do so. So thanks everyone for joining us. If there's nothing else, we'll say goodbye and thanks again. Bye everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.